This video is sponsored by AlphaDraft, where you can play Fantasy CSGO, including ESL One Cologne. I played day one. You can make a team for day two, and you'll be able to carrying on throughout the tournament into the playoffs. Go to the link below if you want to do so. They also produce a CSGO podcast today with Richard Lewis called By the Numbers. Latest episode from a couple of days ago in the box below. ESL One Cologne, day one is over. And day one was the first 3 games in each group. And so we've decided one of the teams that's progressed to the quarterfinals already. And so in the case of Group A, that was TSM. In the case of Group B, it was the Envious lineup. In the case of Group C, it was Fnatic. In the case of Group D, it was Virtus.pro. Those 4 teams are all through. Now, the other 12 teams have to play out the rest of the groups redrawn to decide which 4 teams will join those teams in the top 8 of the tournament in the quarterfinals progressing on. So the redraw means we have different groups set up now. So I'm going to go group by group. I'm going to look at the matchups, give you my thoughts, give my thoughts on who will win in the deciding match, and kind of give you the form guide and what to expect in terms of maps, because that's something that's going to be key here, is to break down the maps. And I want to give a shout out here actually to hltv.org. One thing I think is really good is that for these particular, in fact I noticed they started doing it a few months back, is that for series like this, they've started taking a note of the picks and bans, and that's really useful information. I usually could remember what people picked a ban or figure out by looking at the maps, but sometimes it's good to have the specific info, because sometimes you'll find a surprise. Like one team banned a map that's one of their stronger ones, and so that suggests they have a suspicion about maybe this other team that we don't know is good on that map, has been practicing on it recently. So these are all things to take into consideration. So we'll start in Group E. And Group E has an elimination match of eBettle versus CLG. So eBettle played yesterday against Fnatic and got smashed 16-2 on Mirage. Now CLG played against NIP, and that was quite a close game. They only lost 16-13, and it was a Dust 2 game. So when the two teams play each other, what are we expecting in terms of maps? Well, against Fnatic, eBettle banned Inferno and they banned Cash. And CLG, and in general, we think of eBettle, we don't know much about them because we only know about them from the offline qualifier and then the maps that they're picking and banning here. In general, the first thing you think about with eBettle is that they seem as though Train should be their strongest map. That's the map that they were able to beat Titan on. They played it twice in the offline qualifier, and Fnatic themselves banned it in this draw here. So we're expecting Train's the map they want to get to. The only other thing we really know is that they chose to ban Cash against Fnatic, not necessarily Fnatic's best map, but a strong map for Fnatic, and that in the offline qualifier they managed to beat Hellraisers on Overpass. So maybe Overpass is a map they want. So Train and Overpass we're thinking of as maps that eBettle want. Meanwhile, for CLG, let's think of what they want. Yesterday, they lost on Dust 2 to NIP. Dust 2 and Cash are the main maps that CLG is going to want. These are the maps they want to play, and if there's a third one into the mix, it's going to be something like Mirage. Now, immediately you should notice there's no overlap right there. For eBettle, we've got Train and Overpass. For CLG, we've got Dust 2, Cash, and then Mirage. Now, Cash, remember, was a ban for eBettle against Fnatic. So presumably, eBettle should, if they notice the form of this, ban it against CLG. So they should get Cash right out of there, which leaves... Let's think what the bans should be. I mean, if I'm CLG, I've done this homework here, and I'm banning Train and Overpass as my 2 maps, because I don't really play those maps anyway, so I want those maps the fuck out of there, and they're not my strong maps, and we know that those are the 2 maps eBettle can play. So those should be my 2 bans. Meanwhile, if I'm eBettle, Cash should be a ban, and ideally, Dust should be a ban. So in that scenario, you would end up with a situation where the maps that would be left would be Cobblestone, Inferno, and Mirage. And that would leave us in a world where they already played Mirage against Fnatic. Admittedly, they got rocked in it, but obviously they don't mind playing it. Cobblestone, Inferno. Now, Inferno, that's a map that eBettle did ban yesterday, so maybe they worry about that, but that was Fnatic. It's not necessarily such a threat from CLG. So I think this is the best 3 maps that eBettle can get to. Here's a good thing for eBettle. They can get away from a lot of the strong maps of CLG, but obviously Mirage can come up. We just saw them get smashed on it. CLG don't mind that. They can get away from Dust 2 and Cash if they want to, but Cobblestone and Inferno, I think no matter what, that CLG is going to win this game. I think that overall, as much as eBattle can do correctly in terms of pick ban, it's going to get to maps that CLG can play at least, especially because Mirage is there. That should be a definite win for them. And I think they should be able to win on either of the other two, especially Inferno. Cobblestone, maybe there's a wrinkle there because that is like a more of a specialist map. So I think CLG should be winning this game pretty comfortably and going into the decider match against Na'Vi. So when CLG comes against Na'Vi, remember that. So CLG want Dust 2, Cash, and Mirage is a third. Now in their matchup against NiP, CLG actually banned Inferno and they banned Cobble. So those are two that in theory they don't want to play, and those are ones that, remember, eBattle's going to try and get towards himself. But NiP were the ones who banned out Mirage, and NiP actually banned out Overpass. Now I think that's actually a mistake from NiP on that ban. I'm not talking about NiP right now though, so I'll skip that for the moment. Now in terms of CLG, when you play against Na'Vi, think of Na'Vi's strong maps. Amazing on Overpass. Mirage, fantastic. These are two maps you do not want to play Na'Vi on. Those two are musts. You must get away from those two maps. Beyond that, Train. Those are the three maps. Overpass, Mirage, Train. Now, in general, CLG aren't a Train team anyway. They didn't ban it against NiP, but NiP's also not that much of a threat on it. I think that's one map they just have to ban. There's no choice about that. They must ban Train against Na'Vi. Now, what is going to be their second ban? That's your question. Well, here's the thing to think of with Na'Vi, because what's interesting is, remember, the main two maps CLG won is Dust 2 and Cash. Those are Na'Vi's bans. Na'Vi banned both of those maps against Fnatic. Na'Vi banned both of those maps against Titan. Those are the maps that Na'Vi's almost certainly going to ban. So that leaves you, unfortunately, if you're CLG, with having to live in a world where the best map you can get to for yourself is probably Mirage, which is probably Na'Vi's strongest map, or one of their strongest maps. They are monsters. So you're going to have to leave that out there. You can't ban it. It's got to be one that you have to try and play. So you're instead going to ban out Train, and I would advise them to ban out Overpass. So you're going to ban out Train, you're going to ban out Overpass, which is going to leave a world in which you've got Mirage, which is good for you, but terrible in as much as Na'Vi are going to be monsters on it. It's going to leave Cobblestone, which Na'Vi are known to be good on, and we don't know a whole lot about what CLG can do. Probably nothing on that map. And then the third map it's going to leave in is going to be Inferno, which CLG themselves sometimes ban, so maybe they'll choose to ban it. But Na'Vi are pretty good on that map, and that is a map they can smash on for sure. So you're going to be in a world where you've got Mirage, Cobble, Inferno. Now, I don't see how they can win any of these maps. Maybe some miracle can happen on Mirage. I mean, I guess it's not totally implausible. It just doesn't seem likely because Na'Vi are so spectacular. Cobblestone, that should be definitely a Na'Vi win. And Inferno, I'm thinking CLG can get rounds, but I'm thinking Na'Vi should win that. Na'Vi should definitely win this matchup. Na'Vi versus CLG should be Na'Vi's on any of the maps. I don't see what CLG can do pick ban-wise. They've got a bad pick ban here. It should be fairly standard for CLG. For Na'Vi, rather, in terms of beating CLG. So there's Group E for you. That should be Na'Vi going out of Group E, and then they will go, and as a result, play against Envious in the quarterfinals. And maybe I'll touch on that later on. Let's go through the groups still. Group F. The elimination game is Kingwin versus Immunity, and the winner of this game will play Cloud9. Now, Kingwin versus Immunity. Kingwin played Luminosity and got smashed 16-6 on Overpass. And Immunity played, let me see, what was Immunity's game? Immunity played against Virtus.pro, and they got beat comfortably on Cobble 16-8 by VP. So on Kingwin's side of things, we've got general maps that they want to be on. Dust 2. It's a map they beat Dignitas in the offline qualifier on. Inferno, they've won over Na'Vi on that at Face It Stage 2. It was the one map they got against Na'Vi in the best of 3 there. Cash is the map they 16-0'd Virtus.pro on. They're their 3 maps that they want to get to. Now, today, against Luminosity, they banned out Mirage and Cobble. So they didn't want to play those two, end up playing Overpass. And Immunity are a team that, in general, the maps they want are Mirage, Cash, Inferno. Now, we've got a crossover already there. We've got Cash and Inferno Immunity want to play, so do Kingwin. So presumably, those two teams shouldn't ban those. But I suspect that if you're Immunity, you will definitely ban Cash because of what happened to Virtus.pro. That's the map that you're going to fear from Kingwin. That's the one that people associate with Kingwin at the moment. So if I look at what Immunity banned against Virtus.pro, they banned Train and Overpass. Now here's the thing, if they don't play those maps, they're reasonable maps to ban. The problem is, since Kingwin aren't a team that you think are going to play those maps either, they'll play Overpass, they play Luminosity, but we don't think, in theory, that they'll play Train necessarily. If I'm Immunity, I probably gamble and leave Train up there and just hope that it's a joker map, I can get them onto it and I can have a chance against them. Because in general, what I'm thinking is going to happen here, if I'm thinking of Kingwin, Kingwin did ban Mirage against Luminosity, and that's a strong map for Immunity. So if I'm Kingwin, that's one of my bans, is going to definitely be Mirage. Now my other ban, since I want Cash and I want Inferno, I'm going to dare them to have those in the pack pool, so I'm not going to ban those. So instead, if I'm Kingwin, since I also play Dust 2, I'm probably going to instead go ahead and ban, let's say, Cobble, like we had before. Cobble and Mirage bans again if you're Kingwin. And that means, so Cobble and Mirage for Kingwin. On Immunity's side, if I'm them, like I mentioned before, I'm banning Cash. So that leaves me with the Mirage Inferno scenario there. And, hey, let's face it, why not ban something like, what would it be? Inferno, maybe? Yeah, Cash and Inferno. I think those are my two bans. So off the table, I've taken... You have to keep track of all this shit, don't you? I've taken Inferno, Cash, Immunity's side, and I've taken Mirage, Cobble for Kingwin. So that leaves me with Dust 2. What the fuck would it be? Dust 2, Mirage 2, and then Cobblestone. No, it wouldn't be Cobblestone, would it? It'd be Train. Dust 2, Mirage, Train. Those are the three maps that we left for random draw, assuming these teams go this way. Dust 2, Dust 2, am I getting this wrong? Dust 2, Mirage, Train. Now, of those three maps, if it does go Mirage, actually, I think I already said Mirage is a ban for them, so it must be Train I'm picking there. I think that in general, it's going to be difficult because Kingwin's going to ban out Mirage. I don't think that actually this Immunity team want to see Kingwin on Inferno. I think Inferno, it'll give them a chance. Immunity can get rounds on that, but that will still be a Kingwin win. And any of the other maps also should be wins for Kingwin, although admittedly, they don't have that much experience themselves on LAN, likewise Immunity don't internationally. So those other maps, like Train, like Dust 2, I think Dust 2 would be a strong win for Kingwin, even though that was the map that Immunity took Nip close on at Face It Stage 1. I think that the most dangerous map in this respect is going to be something like Train, because it gives them a chance for Immunity because it's not a Kingwin map. But then if you don't have really good strats, it's just going to come down to raw aim, and that's where Kingwin's going to win. So I think Train is the best map you can hope for if you're actually the guys from Immunity. I think that's the most likely one, bearing in mind what Kingwin will ban. Hope it goes to Train, and maybe you have a chance. I don't think you do ultimately. I think Kingwin should win this one. No matter the maps, they should be going into the winners match to play Cloud9. Now, when they go against Cloud9, what do we think of when we think of Cloud9? We think of Dust 2, Cash, Train. Those are the three strongest maps they have. If you want to put another map into their mix of what they'll play, the other map you'd probably consider would be Cobblestone. That is the map that they played well when they were at CEVO, and that's the map that they were able to beat Fnatic on impressively in, I think it was it overtime or 16-14? I forget, actually. First map of the final of ESL ESEA Pro League, though. I think overtime. Now then, if we look at this particular game, Dust 2, Cash, Train as C9's traditional map picks. But today, Cloud9, in their first map, went against Mouse Sports, and they won on Overpass. But here's what's interesting. They chose to ban Train and Cash, two of their strongest maps. Now, why is that? Because Mouse Sports' strongest maps are Dust 2, Cash, Train. So that doesn't give too much away there. Don't read too much in that. That's because Mouse Sports are excellent on those maps. And if you're Cloud9, you want to push them away onto maps they don't want to play. So Overpass is a good map to try and get Mouse onto there. So Cloud9 did some smart pick ban there. But that doesn't suggest that they don't think their Train and Cash are strong. They do. Now then, when VP played against Cloud9 in the winners game, that ended up being on Cobble. And the bans from C9 here were Train, another Train ban, but that's because VP have shown themselves to be really good on Train, and that's the map that VP wrecked C9 on at CEVO. And the other map ban from Cloud9 was Mirage. Now, Mirage in general, not a C9 map, and also is a map that VP were really good on at CEVO, and that VP traditionally has been always their home map. So again, two smart bans there. I think actually C9 have shown themselves recently with this nice new lineup, the way they've had the sick run of form, to be much better at pick ban than even some of the top European teams. I mean, they're much better than a team like NIB, for example, who I think are the worst. I think they've actually got quite a good aptitude. Sean Guez has shown some good thinking on what to allow to ban and what to let through. So that ended up on Cobble, which they lost to VP 16-8. Now, going against Kingwin, as I've said before, Kingwin want Dust 2, Kingwin want Cash, 2 Cloud9 maps, and Kingwin want Inferno. Now, Inferno has been a bad map for Cloud9. In general, they want to stay clear of that. They've always thought it's good, so they've always been willing to play it. So that's the danger area I'm thinking of right there, if Cloud9 is going to let Inferno come through. Now, Dust 2 and Cash, if I'm Cloud9, here's the thing. I do want to play those maps, so I think they will pick one of those maps to want to play. And if it's up to me, I would assume Dust 2's the one that they're going to let through there. I would actually, if I'm Cloud9, trying to think and outgame Kingwin, I think I would actually consider banning Cash. Like if I'm Cloud9, thinking of the maps that are out there, I'm actually going to ban Cash and Inferno. Because even though I'm really good on Cash, I have lost some on that, and I know that that was the map that Kingwin had the amazing result on against VP. And I know that Inferno has been a good map. Kingwin have actually beaten Na'Vi on it. Meanwhile, we know the beating that C9 have taken on it themselves. In fact, they've lost to Na'Vi themselves on this map. These are the two maps I want to get out. Inferno, Cash. I want to leave Dust 2 out there because I don't think Kingwin's going to ban it. So Kingwin shouldn't ban Dust 2. Instead, presumably, I think Kingwin will go ahead and ban Train. I think they have to. So there's a Train ban from Kingwin. And remember, Kingwin are the team that banned Mirage and Cobble when they were against Luminosity. So if they're smart, they should know, okay, but we don't think of Cloud9 as a Mirage team, so they should ban Cobble. So the bans from Kingwin should be, let me think, what was it again? Train and Cobble. And so that should leave in the mix Overpass, which Kingwin was willing to play before. So Overpass, Dust 2, which we're going to leave up if we're Cloud9. And what would the third one be? Overpass, Dust 2, and Cobblestone. Actually, does that make sense? Let me think. No, the bans would be Inferno and Dust 2 from Cloud9. That's right. So that would leave up... I should really have written all this shit down. I'm trying to do it in my head. Overpass. Mirage. Overpass, Mirage. And let me see. Overpass, Mirage. Kingwin did ban Cobble, so there's a problem for them. Overpass, Mirage. How am I this dense? I'm not thinking what it could be. Actually, let me fucking write down what I just said. So C9 bans. Let's see. Inferno and Cash. Okay. And Kingwin bans. Let's see. Train. Yeah, we got that, Daddy. And Cobble. There we go. So now we've got the 4 maps left. So now we're going to have Mirage, Overpass, Dust 2. Don't know why I was so slow on that. I should really just written this shit down, but whatever. It's late. So we're going to have 3 maps left. Mirage, Overpass, Dust 2. Now on these maps, Dust 2, that should definitely be Cloud9's. They're a much better team on it. It is a good map for Kingwin occasionally, but I don't think it against this caliber of team. They can't afford to play on that map. Overpass, I'm also going to go ahead and give over to Cloud9. That's the map they beat Mouse on here. That's the map they came close to beating Fnatic on at ESL ESEA Pro League, except for that monster flusher performance. And that's the map that Kingwin themselves lost onto Luminosity today. So I think Overpass is going to be really tough for Kingwin. And I think that Mirage is actually going to be fairly up in the air. It's not going to necessarily be ridiculously for either team. I think that's the best map overall to play for both, in as much as for Kingwin's side. That's the one that Kingwin have the best chance in if they can get to Mirage. If it's Overpass Dust 2, I'm pretty sure Cloud9's winning. If it's Dust 2, Kingwin has a chance, but Cloud9 should win. Mirage, that's the one that is the most of a Joker map, and Kingwin has their best chance on, but I would still probably pick Cloud9 to win there. So I'm actually going to pick Cloud9 to win this matchup. Cloud9 will go into the next round, and they will play against TSM in what should be a really awesome quarterfinal. That's obviously a rematch of the final of Face It Stage 2 rather, finals, where TSM actually beat Cloud9 quite convincingly. Now then, going into Group G. This is Titan versus Renegades in the elimination match, and the winner plays Nip. So Titan played against Na'Vi, lost in overtime on overpass. Played Na'Vi, a great overpass team, very closely, but lost. Then Titan played against Nip. No, they didn't. They were already out at that point. Don't know why I said that. Relegation teams only can play once. Renegades played against TSM, and they played Train, a map that is considered in theory the weakest, one of the weakest along Cobblestone of TSM, but TSM Online had been wrecking with it, and they did wreck Na'Vi, a strong team on it. So okay, still, that's just how deep Na'Vi's map the map pool is for TSM, but they lost 16-11, reasonably close, so not a bad result there. So that leaves Renegades versus Titan. Now, Titan, traditionally, here's the problem. We've only seen the ESL offline qualifier with this lineup with Shocks and Smiths. Traditionally, with the old Kenny S and Apex lineup, which should be quite different, they're very different style players based around. Traditionally, we thought of Titan as a Cash, Cobblestone, and Inferno team. And if you had to throw a fourth map in, it was going to be Dust 2. But those were the three they wanted. And of the three, they particularly wanted Cash and Cobble. These were the two they had a good chance on against a number of teams. Now, more recently, they started to work in Train and Overpass. They played Train at the offline qualifier with the new lineup. And Overpass, here's what's interesting, because obviously they played it today. They were willing to have it in there. That's the map which they'd never played on LAN until they played it against Na'Vi at DreamHack Summer in the semi-final of that tournament. And they got a bunch of rounds on CT, but that's it. They got wrecked, and it's not a map they were good on. They'd never played it before. But it seems like Existence got it in his mind. I'm going to start playing this from now on. And so he started allowing it in. And obviously this time, with this new lineup, something's working against one of the best overpass teams, if not the best in the world. They managed to almost win the game and get to overtime. So that's interesting that they managed to make that work to a sense. So we've got that in the back of our mind there. Then we look at the pick bans of what happened there. So Na'Vi banned out Cash, Dust 2, which are just Na'Vi's standard bans, by the way. They're just doing that against most teams. Titan chose to ban out Mirage and Cobble. Now, interesting they banned out Cobble, because on one hand, Na'Vi's a good Cobble team, but it's not one of their main maps we think of necessarily. And historically, they've played the old Titan against Na'Vi a number of times on Cobble and lost. And here's the interesting thing. Titan ban out Mirage, which is a map they had started to play recently, which traditionally is not a map of theirs. So actually, we're still trending towards the old trends of the teams. So if we think of those sorts of bans, then we'd think that Titan wants to probably get it towards maps like Cash, not Cobble anymore. So maybe Cash, Inferno, Dust 2. Those are the ones I'm thinking reasonably the ones they like to go towards more. Maybe not Dust 2 as much. Maybe they want Overpass in there instead. Maybe Train. Maybe they've tried to embrace the neo maps. That's the real joker here that you have to worry about if you're Renegades. Now, if you're Renegades, here's what's it's interesting. Because Renegades want to play Cash, Train, Inferno. Cash is the map they've had a number of wins on. They beat Fnatic on it at Gfinity. They beat CLG on it. And they beat ESWC. And they beat SK on it at IEM Gamescom. Train is the map they beat Nip on way back at Gfinity. And Inferno is just a map they play a lot. So Cash, Train, Inferno. Now, of these maps here, in theory, none of those maps should be banned by Titan. Titan should be willing to play most of those maps. Now, the fact that Titan recently have allowed some Train in, have allowed some Overpass in, there's where it gets interesting. Because Renegades pretty much basically don't play Overpass. That's not a map they play. You don't have LAN record on this map. It's not a map they play. So you're assuming, if you're Renegades, and let's look at what they banned Dust 2 and Mirage before. So presumably, they played on Train, so they're willing to play Train. They do not want to play Overpass, so presumably they're willing to leave Train in there. Now, I'm thinking to myself, if I'm Renegades, because I like Cash and I like Inferno, that what I'm going to ban is probably going to be, let me think, probably going to be, See, I like Cash and I like Inferno, so I'm not banning those two, obviously. They did ban Dust 2, so maybe I ban that, but I'm not sure if Titan's going to necessarily want that now. I have to ban Overpass, so I'm thinking Dust 2 and Overpass for their bans, which would leave us in a situation where, let's write this down again. So if Renegades bans Dust 2, Overpass, and Titan presumably ban, I think if they're smart, they should ban Train, even if they've played it, because, I mean, that's a map that Renegades have played now against TSM close. They beat Nip on it in the past. You haven't played that much of it if you're Titan. That should be a ban for you if you're Titan. So Titan should ban Train, and the second map Titan should ban, I think if they think it through, should probably be I would say Mirage. Even though they banned Cobble and Mirage, I'm assuming Cobble should be the one they still would at least be willing to play. And that's not a map that there's a history that Renegades is necessarily going to be able to do anything on that. So you don't have to worry about that. So that would then leave us with these 4 maps. Cache, Inferno, and let's see, what would the third one be? Cobblestone. Now, here's where it gets interesting. On Cache, I think that is going to be the best map these two teams can play if it gets there. That should be a fun game. Well, listen, this isn't some super sick Titan lineup in terms of raw skills. So Renegades can go head to head with them. That'll be a tactical matchup. I think on that one, I'm going to favor Titan slightly. A close game, maybe 16-12, 16-13, Titan wins it. On Train, oh no, we don't have Train, rather Inferno. Now, here's the one where Inferno's one where there's not really a track record of Renegades getting the big wins on those top teams. They have played some teams close on it. I think that one would be a pretty wide open one. That's the one where it's hard to predict necessarily in favor of Titan on there. Like, what will they do there? So I think that one will be pretty 50-50. So let's say 50-50 for that one. Or if I have to pick one, Titan 51%. Okay, how about that? Cobblestone, that would be the interesting one. Because the fact that they banned it themselves, I wonder in Titan's case, is that because of the Na'Vi factor on the other side of the map? Because you don't want to play Na'Vi on Cobblestone. That's fine. But if you're Renegades, first of all, you didn't have to ban Cobble, because actually TSM banned it against you because TSM didn't watch it, which I actually think is a mistake, but whatever. Get into that on the TSM side of things. You banned out Dust 2 Mirage. You're not going to have to play either of those two, because actually Titan might ban out Mirage. Now, here's what's interesting, by the way, is if Titan actually did their homework here, Titan could save a ban by knowing that Renegades won't ban out Mirage, and they could ban something else themselves. So if Titan wanted, they could leave Mirage up and take out Cobble. They could leave Mirage up and take out Inferno. I think they'll still probably go with it, because I don't know how much they'll be worried about these things or what they'll know from the scouting. If it goes to Cobble, I'm going to give it to Titan still. I think this is a good tactical map. I think it's a map that will be... And here's what's good about this matchup. If they could play maps that I decided, if I could pick the strong maps for each team, there could be some whitewashers here for Titan. But I actually think the maps that are going to come out, if these teams pick ban properly, will be really good maps. Like, I think Cache and Inferno... Let me think. I actually think Cache and Cobble would be the two best for these two teams to play. Overall, I'm still in general on pretty much all maps seeing this being a win for the guys from Titan. I think they should win. I think they've got enough. I think they're a better team. I think they've shown it so far. So I'm thinking Titan goes through. So that leaves us with Titan versus NiP. A classic matchup for some of these players against each other from the early days of CSGO when it used to be Very Games NiP. Now, NiP. The problem with NiP is they've lost so much recently, and they've been trying to change things up so much recently that they don't have a consistent pattern of the maps they like that are good on and can win against top teams on. So they've got a whole smorgasbord of maps, a few maps they don't like. And now here's the problem for NiP, is that they have 4 maps that we can reasonably say they want to be towards these 3, from history at least, which is Cache, Dust 2, Mirage, and Inferno. The problem for NiP is that they have maps which, at least recently, they might have been practicing them, they don't play the newer maps. Historically, they very rarely play them. They don't play Overpass pretty much. They barely play Cobble, the odd game, and they barely play Train. Now, today, they played Dust 2 against CLG, and they played Cache against TSM, so they didn't play either of them today. And today, they banned Mirage and Overpass against CLG, so they didn't want to play on Overpass. And against TSM, they banned out Overpass and Dust 2. So again, they did not want to play on Overpass. So remember, they do not play Overpass. So almost certainly, they are not going to be going towards Overpass. Here's what's interesting. Titan did play Overpass against Na'Vi. That's going to make them a threat there. They've started to inculcate it. So surely, if you're NiP, Overpass first ban. Now then, if you think what else NiP is going to want to ban out, likely Cobble or Train. Which would they pick between the two? There's your question. I would suggest they will pick Cobble. So let's go there. Cobble. Now that leaves Titan in a situation where if I'm Titan, I'm probably going to go ahead and ban out... Let me think. I think I would probably ban out Dust 2. Let me think. What else did they ban before? No, Mirage I think would be their first ban because they banned that before. They don't play it generally. That's the first ban for Titan. Obvious one there, I think. And I think another one that would make sense logically, since Cobble's already gone if NiP takes it out, would be for Titan to ban out... See, here's the thing. History would tell you train. They don't really play that. But if they're clever, they should know that nip don't play train. So if I was Titan personally, I leave train in. I leave train in, I leave overpass in, which nip's going to ban out. And I know they're going to take out cobble. So I don't give them a favour and ban out train. Because at that point, nip's banned out overpass cobble. Now I'm going to ban out train. I've banned out the 3 maps they don't want to get on. Watch this tomorrow in the pick ban. This will be a huge mistake if Titan bans out train here. So if Titan are smart, leave train in. Even though you don't know that much yourself, you want to fuck with nip, okay? Instead, if I'm Titan, since I'm going to leave train in, what I'm going to go ahead and ban out is, remember, I want to be on cobble, I want to be on cash, I want to be inferno, maybe dust 2. Now, dust 2 and inferno and cash, all 3 maps nip likes. So those are maps that in theory we want to play, right? So we got dust 2, cash, inferno, which leaves us with one last map ban, which is going to be... See, here's what's interesting. Maybe they do go with train still. They have been playing train more recently. It's a map nip don't like, but the other 3 maps you could be left with if you're Titan are maps you like all, in theory. But today, you banned out Mirage and Cobble, and today nip banned out Dust 2. So maybe nip don't want Dust. That was against TSM, to be fair. Let me think. See, the things I don't really want Dust 2 if I'm Titan either. What should we ban out here? We've got 1 ban left. It's going to be between train and one of those other maps. See, I actually think that if I'm Titan here, I think I actually would leave train up as a wild card. So I have to take one of these other ones out. So I'm going to go ahead and say, let's take out Dust 2. So that will leave us with a 3 map pool of train, cash, inferno. Train, man, this is so hard to tell because nip has had good results on it. They have played close with Fnatic on it twice. Lost once at DreamHack Summer semis, lost once in the group stage of Face It Stage 2. Close games. They have been able to go on maps like... But meanwhile, Titan wants apparently to start playing it again. They're willing to have it in there. I'll edge that to nip. I think nip should win if it goes to train. But that's interesting that Titan aren't outright necessarily banning it themselves. Cash. Now, cash is the one where traditionally Titan used to be money on this map. Now, nip... We haven't really seen them as money on it recently, and the fact that they got ultra smashed by TSM on Cash, and by the way, Cash is like the 4th best map at TSM. It's not even a top 3 map theirs. In fact, I think that's where nip made a mistake in their pick ban, which is that nip banned out Overpass, whereas if I was nip, I know they don't play Overpass, but I might have gambled playing that more. Okay, maybe that one's questionable, I guess. Yeah, okay, I guess that's questionable. But maybe you could have forced them to do a different ban. Yeah, no, okay, fair enough on that one. But they got smashed on it. So Cash should be the real awesome one to watch here. If these 2 teams play, Titan versus nip on Cash, that will be a great game. I think that'll be a very close game. I actually could even see Titan edging that very slightly. We're talking like 52% to 48%. Let's give that one a Titan, okay? But actually, nip can definitely win that, like I say, by 48%. Inferno... I'm going to give this one to nip. I think they'd win that reasonably comfortably. So I'm giving nip 2 out of the 3 maps. And even though they lose on the 48%, so I'm expecting nip to win this match and to go through into the quarterfinals where they will play against Virtus.pro. Classic matchup. Last group, Group H. Group H. In Group H, the elimination match is Mouse Sports versus Flipside. Now, Cloud9 played against Mouse Sports and beat them 16-10 on Overpass. Flipside played against Envious, and Envious beat them 16-3 on Inferno. Now let's talk about Mouse Sports. Traditional maps, Dust 2, Cash, Train, strong on all of them. Really good maps. Don't play Inferno, play a little bit of Overpass and not much Cobble. And then what would the last map be there? Let me see. There's 3 maps. I'm missing one. Mirage. Yeah, Mirage is pretty much a non-factor for either side. So those are the ones they don't play. Inferno, Overpass, Cobble. Do play Dust 2, Cash, Train. Now, when they played against Cloud9, Mouse Sports banned Inferno. Don't play it, remember. Banned Mirage. don't play it particularly, and let it go to Overpass, which they only played a bit of. But they were kind of stuck in a hard place there because Cloud9 intelligently actually banned out 2 of Cloud9's own maps, Train and Cash, and Dust 2 was in the pool, which would have been awesome for both teams, but that didn't end up coming out. So Mousesports, in some senses, caught an unlucky break. If it had been Dust 2, they'd have a chance to win. Didn't work out that way. And also, that's just smart vetoes by C9 to not make it even competitive. Whereas the temptation would have been to leave the 3 strong maps out, and then Mouse would have had a chance no matter what it was on. Now, in terms of the guys from Flipside, traditionally, they play, and you have to realize, traditionally for this one's going to be very difficult because they've lost Simple, who was their best player, totally changed the way the team was defined, the style, all the strengths. So we're going to have to historically go back, but some of it's going to be hard. Like Mirage is a map that with Simple and Eco, they won against Nip, and in the past, they won against Dignitas. Cash is a map they've won against Kingwin, amazingly. I think it was at the Gaming Paradise thing, even though it's a strong map for Kingwin. And Inferno, here's what's weird. They like to play Inferno a lot, but they also get ultra fucking wrecked on Inferno, even when they had Simple. I'm talking tons of like getting 1 to 16, 1 to 16, 3 to 16, 5 to 16. They get body bagged on this map. But luckily for them, Inferno, remember what I just said, Mousesports do not play Inferno. Now, if I'm Mouse, if I've done my homework, I want to play Inferno against this team because I know they're not particularly good on it. But I don't know that Mouse will because teams tend, when they don't play a map, to just always do that as like a comfort ban. So presumably, they're not going to be in trouble there. Now, in terms of what they don't play, Flipside, don't play Overpass. They play a decent amount of Cobble. They don't play Train. So don't play Overpass, don't play Train. Train, obviously a Mousesports map. So let's do our bans here. Flipside, ban, Train. Obvious one. It's the first one you get a ban right there, right? Now here's where it's interesting. Do they ban Overpass? Mouse at least did decently against Cloud9 and Overpass. Maybe let's look at what Flipside banned. They banned out Cash and Dust 2 before. So they were willing to leave Overpass in before. See, the problem here is that if I'm Flipside, I've already banned out Train. Dust 2 is maybe up in the air. I'd probably consider banning out Dust 2 here. I think you should probably ban Overpass, but I'd gamble and leave it in and see if I can force Mouse to ban it. So let's look at what Mouse will ban. Tradition says they'll ban Overpass. So let's say they ban that. And they don't like Inferno, but Inferno's a map that Flipside get wrecked on. But maybe Mouse chooses to ban Inferno as well. Maybe they don't care about Flipside and also is a new lineup and different team. So maybe they just go with the comfort bans, which leaves us with 3 maps of Cash, Cobblestone, and let's have a look. Cash, Cobblestone, Mirage. Now, the problem here, Cash, brilliant map for the guys from Mouse. Should be a strong win for them. Should be really good on both sides. Definite win. Cobblestone, not so much a Mouse map. Not one we think of. It's one that Flipside does play, but they're not particularly strong on it. They don't have big wins on it. That's up in the air. I'm still going to give that decently, whatever, what should you say, 55, 60% over towards Mousesports? I think so. And then Mirage, here's the thing. Mirage is a really strong map for Flipside. So actually, let me think. Maybe I'm going to go back, actually. See, here's the thing. I think I've just realized, here's the smart move for Mouse. Knowing that Flipside like to play Inferno, but get wrecked on it, but knowing that Mirage is their best map historically, and that if you're Mouse, Mirage is in the middle, you don't play Inferno, but Mirage is in the middle for you, I would probably change my ban to Mirage. So that's going to leave Inferno as the last one. Now, I think Mouse is just such a good team that they should win all 3 of these maps. Cash, Cobble, and Inferno. Cash should be brutally a massive win for them. Inferno should be a decent win, and Cobblestone should be a decent to okay win as well. So Mouse should win this series, go through to the final match against Luminosity to decide the quarterfinal. Now, Luminosity, historically, let's look at what they did today. They played Kingwin on Overpass and they won 16-6, and they played Envious on Cobble and they lost in overtime 19-16. Now, Luminosity, historically, remember they used to be Keyed Stars, not the old Luminosity, that NA team that had Devil Walk that used to get wrecked on LAN. This used to be Keyed Stars and Kaboom before that. Admittedly, they've changed one player. Now, historically, we know traditionally their best map is Mirage. That's the one that they got to win on Cloud9 at. The old Cloud9 with Shazam at MLGX Games Aspen in the group stage. Then right after that, they beat Fnatic on it, a very good Mirage team, at ClutchCon. And So we know historically that was a good map for them. But first of all, that's a long time ago. And secondly, they actually haven't got to play it much on LAN because since teams think of it as their best map, it's permabanned against them. So they never get to play it. Now then, the next map for them is Inferno. They beat Hellraisers on it way back. And they beat TSM on it. That's the one they upset TSM on at ESL ESEA Pro League, which is a good map for TSM, to get into that winners match in the group stage there. And the third map for them is Overpass. That is the map that way back at ESL One Cologne, the last major, they beat Virtus.pro on it in their round of 8 match. That was the map that they managed to take. So Mirage, Inferno, Overpass. Now they don't play Dust 2 or Cash much. Dust 2 and Cash, not really. This team hasn't had that many LAN games, you have to realise, if you actually add it all up. Now let's look what they banned today. Against Kingwin, they banned Dust 2, don't play that much. Inferno. Inferno, in theory, one of their stronger maps, but they didn't want to play Kingwin on it. And against Envious, Luminosity banned Dust 2, and they banned Inferno. So we see a trend there against these two teams. They don't want to play Dust 2 and Inferno. Now, they don't play Dust 2, so we're going to assume, first of all, that they straight away ban Dust 2. Because remember, they're playing Mouse Sports now. We know Mouse Sports are very strong on Dust 2, so that's an obvious ban, right? Now, Inferno, that's a map that Mouse Sports don't play. That's a map that historically Luminosity likes. So if I'm Luminosity, don't ban Inferno. Which means Mouse Sports probably have to ban Inferno here. Now then, Overpass. There's an interesting map, right? Because Luminosity, in theory, will play it, but Mouse Sports played it. So I'm assuming Mouse Sports won't ban Overpass. Instead, if you're Mouse Sports, maybe you want to ban out Mirage, because you ban it anyway. It's not a map you play that much. Therefore, you ban out Mirage. Now, Luminosity, I'm going to leave for their last ban. Since they haven't got anything on it, I'm going to go ahead and assume it has to be, it's going to be Train or Cobble, right? So I'm going to go ahead and assume Train, because what the fuck do they know about that map? They are a good tactical team, but we know that of the two maps, Train Cobble, that's a really strong mouse map. So we're going to ban Train here, which is going to leave us with a 3-map pool of Overpass, Cash, and what would the third one be? Mirage, let me see, Cash, Inferno, Cobble. So Overpass, Cash, Cobble is the 3 maps that it should reasonably get to. Now on these maps, Overpass, that is a map that can be decent for Luminosity, but that was a while ago they beat Virtus.pro there. Mouse Sports, not known as a team that play it. They play a little bit of it, but tactically and skill-wise, they should be able to play this map and win it. It'll be a good tactical battle. I like these two teams strategically in terms of matching up in that sense. Tactical teams. I'm going to give that one to Mouse Sports like 60-40, if not 65-35. In fact, I think, yeah, they would win that decently, I think. Cash, I think, would be a pretty brutal victory. Bearing in mind, Luminosity don't really play it, and it's a strong map for the guys over on Mouse Sports. That would be a brutal, brutal win for Mouse Sports. They should wreck Cash. And Cobble is a map neither team really plays. It's not really one they either play. It's quite a tactical map again. That's what's great about this setup, by the way. Overpass, Cash, Cobble. So, and potentially we're going to get some nice strats from the two teams, which is what they're famous for. Not the most skilled teams, great executions though. And I'm assuming that should be a decent win for Mouse. It's a questionable map, but they should be able to win on it. So they should win all the maps. And unfortunately for Luminosity, it's hard to get away from the stuff that you don't want to play there. So Mouse Sports will win that, and then they will go off and play Fnatic. Now, I'll give you a quick, very basic rundown of what that would leave the quarterfinals at. But obviously, it's better if I just do a separate video once we know the quarterfinals, previewing those. So that would be Envious versus Na'Vi. Great matchup. Historically, one of the ones that saw Envious breaking up after they lost that big best of 5 in the Star Series 13 final when they had shocks, etc. And then Na'Vi basically took up the spot. They're number 2 in the world now. The Envious used to be months and months ago. They went in opposite directions, and Envious made this big lineup change. Now Envious suddenly has all these new interesting maps, this crazy new lineup. Na'Vi, still a very dangerous team. That would be a hell of a battle right there. And if Envious can beat Na'Vi, that fucking says a lot. Because Na'Vi's the number 2 team in the world right now. That says like you're going to contend for the title if you can do that. TSM will play against Cloud9. Brilliant fucking game. This will be awesome. TSM is a team that traditionally C9 hate to play because the old Dignitas guys used to wreck them in scrims. This is a lineup where it's so skilled, they can definitely match up with Shroud and Skadoodle. They can definitely go tactically head-to-head. I think Sean Gares is comparable to Carrigan, and his style's quite interesting, but it's going to be hard to beat that style, especially TSM CT side's super strong, and they have good T sides. It's going to be hard for C9 to win that, but if they can, hey, Now you know that it wasn't just a good run of form before. They are legit going to be going for the crown themselves. Because at the moment they haven't shown they can win. They can show they beat people, upset people. TSM notably, one of the teams they haven't though. They haven't beat TSM in a best of 3 yet. They've managed to beat Fnatic. They've managed to beat, who else? Envious. These teams they've taken, they haven't taken TSM. So I think TSM's probably a bit too much from there. But it would be a fun match. Hopefully a 3-mapper. Go over to Virtus.pro versus NiP. One of the all-time great matchups, NiP versus VP. 9 of these players have played some amazing matchups. Obviously, with NiP being in such a mess in terms of the maps they play, VP in theory looking pretty strong. VP looks like they're poised to be able to take that one and move into a semi and kind of continue the revitalization of their team. But if NiP can claw their way through that, then hey, maybe it's possible they can go to the final. Doesn't seem likely right now, but whatever. Last matchup, Fnatic versus Mouse Sports. That's what I'm assuming it's going to be. If that happens, I think that will be quite an interesting matchup, but I don't think Mouse Sports are well matched up to be able to beat Fnatic. The problem is, Fnatic can easily get away from the maps that Mouse Sports are good on. They can ban them out. Then Mouse Sports isn't famous for having a really deep map pool, so the maps that Fnatic would want to ban away are 2 of the strongest for Mouse Sports. Fnatic will play the other. Fnatic will have a stronger map pool. Fnatic has more skill, and the Mouse Sports guys don't really have the overall skill to threaten them. Tactically, they can go head-to-head and cause problems, but God B would really have to be the MVP and just read Pronex perfectly nearly. So that'll be a very hard series. I assume Fnatic should win this. Now, the bracket means, assuming this is correct, that we've got a really crazy scenario, because actually the draw has ended up like this. Fnatic has gotten almost the easiest draw to get to the final they could get, because they're on the side of the bracket that has VP on, and then potentially NiP and Mouse. So VP, NiP, Mouse. Now, that means on the bottom half of the bracket, we have the #1 team in the world, Fnatic, but beyond them, we have VP's 5th, and then the other 2 teams aren't top 6. So we only have 2 top 6 teams on the bottom half of the bracket. Top half of the bracket is Envious versus Na'Vi and Titan versus presumably C9. All 4 of those teams are top 6 teams in the world. Na'Vi are the 2nd best team in the world, TSM are the 3rd best team, C9 are the 4th best team, Envy are the 6th best team. So top side of the bracket is really stacked. Whoever gets there out of that is probably going to be in fucking insane form to have got through that murderer's row of teams. Meanwhile, Fnatic, in theory, depending on how good VP is, depending on how good NiP is, might actually be able to just cruise to the final without being tested, which could be bad for them, but it makes it much more likely we'll see Fnatic in the final, which in some ways, if you think about the story I just set up there, would be more fitting, right? The great team of this era for the last year or so versus... and the #1 team in the world and the champions of the last major, the reigning champions, versus the team who's battled all the other elite level teams on the other side of the bracket, beaten them out, and now they're going to challenge them for the trophy, as it were, at the end of this part of the season. That would be a great matchup. So anyway, that's day 2. That's how the redraws are likely to go. I've given you some pick ban info there. Basically a little bit extended analyst test. There's no one to go in my ear going, send down to casters, as you had just started that point there. So there we go. Thanks to Overdraft for all the cash. If you want to play tomorrow's games, go on alphadraft.com.